The snowstorm was brutal, winds howling like wolves in the night. An old man shivered as he cracked open his cabin door, only to freeze in shock. A German shepherd stood trembling in the snow, her fur caked in ice, two helpless pups pressed against her. What he did next changed everything. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The wind howled like a living thing, rattling the wooden shutters of the cabin. Snow swirled in thick sheets, burying the forest in white silence. Inside, an old man sat wrapped in a heavy blanket, staring into the crackling fire. He had lived through many winters alone, but this one felt harsher than most. Just as he was about to drift into uneasy sleep, a faint scratching reached his ears. At first he thought it was the storm playing tricks. Then came a low whimper, followed by another desperate scrape at the door. His brow furrowed. Visitors never came this far, especially on a night like this. Cautiously, he pulled the door open, and the icy wind bit his skin. There in the swirling snow stood a German shepherd covered in frost, with two tiny pups huddled beneath her trembling body. For a long moment, the old man just stared. His breath hung in the freezing air as the dog met his eyes, steady, unblinking, yet desperate. The pups whimpered softly, their small bodies pressed into her chest for warmth. Snow clung to their fur like needles of ice. Fear gripped him first. Stray dogs could be dangerous, even sick. What if she lashed out? What if he let them in and brought trouble into his home? His hand hovered on the doorknob, ready to slam it shut against the storm and the sight outside. But something in her gaze stopped him. It wasn't anger. It was pleading, raw, silent, almost human. The shepherd stood firm, refusing to move as though begging for one chance. The old man's heart wavered. His mind told him no, but compassion whispered otherwise. For the first time in years, he hesitated. The storm wailed louder, snow swirling into the cabin as the door hung open. The old man's grip on the knob tightened, his heart battling with his fear. He glanced once more at the pups, their tiny frames shivering, their cries muffled by the wind. He sighed deeply. "All right," he muttered under his breath, stepping aside. Slowly, the shepherd nudged her pups forward, guiding them into the warmth. They stumbled clumsily across the threshold, collapsing onto the wooden floor. She followed, cautious but determined, her eyes never leaving his. As he shut the door, the cold air rushed out, replaced by the crackling fire's glow. Snow melted into puddles beneath their paws, steam rising from their fur. The old man leaned against the doorframe, staring at the unexpected guests in his cabin. For the first time in years, his lonely home no longer felt empty. The old man moved quickly, pulling an old wool blanket from the shelf and spreading it near the fire. The two pups stumbled onto it, curling together in a small, trembling heap. Their tiny whimpers softened as the warmth began to seep into their frozen bodies. The shepherd circled them once, then lowered herself protectively over the pups. Her eyes flicked toward the man, wary, but no longer filled with fear. She seemed to understand he meant no harm. The crackle of the fire filled the silence, mingling with the sound of slow, steady breathing. The man added more logs to the hearth, watching the flames rise. For years, this cabin had known nothing but his solitude. Now, with three fragile lives resting inside, it felt different, warmer, fuller, alive. For the first time in a long while, he felt the presence of trust building between them. As the firelight grew brighter, the old man's eyes settled on the shepherd. Beneath her thick coat, her ribs were sharply outlined, each breath a struggle. She had clearly gone without food for days, maybe longer, sacrificing everything to keep her pups alive. His chest tightened at the sight. The pups stirred weakly, one attempting to rise before collapsing back onto the blanket. Their hunger was evident in their thin bodies and faint cries. The man reached for a small pot, warming some milk he had left. Kneeling, he fed them drop by drop, watching their frail bodies respond with desperate eagerness. As he worked, Memories resurfaced. His late wife's laughter, the echo of a family long gone. Since their passing, he had shut his heart, convinced there was no room for love or responsibility. But now, staring at these helpless creatures, he felt his loneliness reflected in their eyes, and for the first time, he wanted to fight for them. That night, the storm howled mercilessly outside, rattling the cabin walls. The old man tried to rest in his chair by the fire, but a soft sound stirred him awake, a low whimper. He opened his eyes to find the shepherd standing beside him, her nose nudging his hand. For a moment he froze. In her eyes there was no fear now, only trust. She wasn't asking for food or shelter. She was asking for him. Slowly, he reached out, his rough fingers brushing her fur. She leaned into his touch and something inside him broke open. The pups stirred on the blanket, their faint cries softening as the shepherd returned to them. The old man sat back, his heart pounding with a feeling he hadn't known in years, purpose. He looked at the fire, whispering to himself, "I'll protect you, all of you." In that promise, his empty cabin became a home again. The days that followed unfolded like a quiet miracle. Each morning, the old man rose to find the pups stronger, their tiny paws clattering across the cabin floor as they played, clumsily near the fire. Laughter, something he thought he had forgotten, escaped his lips as they tumbled over one another. The shepherd no longer kept her distance. She followed him as he chopped wood, waited patiently by the door, and lay at his feet in the evenings. Her eyes, once filled with caution, now carried calm trust. Word of the strange winter visitors spread quickly through the nearby village. Neighbors arrived with scraps of meat, blankets, and kind words. The man, who had once lived in silence, now found himself surrounded by voices and warmth. His cabin, once a place of solitude, had become a gathering of life, and with it, his heart slowly healed. As winter turned to spring, the land blossomed with new life. Inside the cabin, the pups tumbled across the floor, their playful yips filling the air. The shepherd rested nearby, eyes calm, finally at peace. The old man sat quietly, marveling at how one stormy night had changed everything. Opening that door hadn't just saved them. It had saved him. The loneliness that once haunted him was gone, replaced by warmth and belonging. When neighbors called him a hero, he only shook his head. Stroking the shepherd's fur, he whispered, "They're the ones who rescued me." By the fire, with the pups curled at his feet, he realized love had found him again.